Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Cat's Track. Thank you for subscribing, liking, and sharing this with your friends. Today's episode is with our friend Kim Furlong. Kim was born in what she calls the most scenic parts of Canada on the Gaspe Peninsula of Quebec. She is a proud mom of 6-year-old twin boys known as the Peanuts. So cute. She's married to a kind man who is her true equal, and they approach life as absolute partners. Besides her loved ones, Kim loves politics and great books. She grew up in a kitchen as her parents were restaurant owners. She loves food and wine. She spends a lot of time cooking. Having friends around the table to share a meal is a definite definition of true happiness for Kim. She is also an avid athlete and is most happy with cross-country skis on her feet, on her road bike, or on a golf course. Friends, you'll find her full bio attached. Kim, thank you so much for joining us today.
So excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Kat.
I'm glad you're here. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Are you ready for the questions now?
I'm ready, yeah.
Excellent. I'm very curious to know why you do what you do.
Well, first of all, for people that have read my bio, I'm the CEO of the Canadian Venture and Private Equity Association. And that role I assumed 2 years ago. And it's interesting, when I was approached by the outgoing CEO to consider the role, it was almost immediate that it was interesting to me. The sector was interesting. I'd spent the decade before working for a multinational that had a venture arm, which I had spent time with. And when I interviewed for the job, the question that every good headhunter or board panel would ask you is why. And even before I knew what I know now, 2 years in, I had the sense that private capital, venture, and private equity was and would continue to be an engine of change and growth for the Canadian economy. And to be able to lead that industry and be their spokesperson was just, an offer that I couldn't pass. And I'll tell you, Kat, the last 2 years, especially on the venture side, the numbers that we're seeing and the growth in the companies, the exit, the entrepreneurship, every morning I get up and think how grateful and how lucky I am to be sitting in my seat and get to interact with my members and lead my team and really showcasing and putting a spotlight on the importance of that sector to Canada's economy.
No, I love it. I love that you're leading in that space. Oh my gosh. I keep hearing great things about you from Calgary. So well done. You've got a great reputation, Kim. I'm very, very glad that you're here today.
That's very kind.
What about the top 3 things that you'd like to share with us today?
Well, I jogged down 3 notes, and I'll list them, and then we can dig into each of them. The first one was how do we get Canadians to be less risk averse? How do we get past a mentality of it's good enough? The second one was how do we create winning conditions for entrepreneurship and for companies to grow in Canada? And the third one was the importance of venture capital and private equity and what it does to our economy. And they're all in some ways intertwined, things that I grapple with when I think about the challenges about our way ahead. I always find that this idea that how we celebrate success, how we grow a company. Years ago, and still today, people will say to you, Canadians are great at starting companies. They just don't go to the end, like they sell too fast. And that's changing. We're seeing it in the IPOs. There was a deal in Verifin last year. A huge funding round of about 500 million went to this Newfoundland cybersecurity company. And this year, NASDAQ bought them for a few $1 billion. And you think you can build it anywhere.
Yeah.
And the money will flow and the business can be built. So, but it still remains. I have conversations with our members and when they look at the risk appetite in our southern neighbor, which is, we have the benefit of being close to them, but also to our detriment. It's very, very clear that as a general population, they tolerate more risk.
Mm-hmm.
They have, you know, kind of a will to grow and to win. And for us, I feel like it's different. I always go back to like Own the Podium and how we decided to do something different as a country for the Olympics, and people got behind it. And when we saw results, there was a real pride. And a lot of people use that anecdote to kind of talk about like how we should own more podiums and more sectors. And there's nothing truer than in risk capital and private equity. There's a lot of growth potential on both sides of those capital investments. And oftentimes investors say, you know, well, you know, we made a little bit of money, might as well kind of call it a day now and sell the company. And what I'm hearing more and more from my members is, how do we continue to grow? How do we change the way capital is deployed to stay longer in the course? How do we build multinational? How do we have more Shopifys? So that risk component is the first thing. And if I'm not sure who your audience is, and you know, these kinds of things kind of live on the internet, but I would say, I'm not talking about just my industry. I'm not talking about my members. I'm not talking just about entrepreneurs. I think Canadians, as a general rule of thumb, we need to be more comfortable with risk. We need to roll the dice more often. So that would be the first one. The second one is to create the conditions to grow entrepreneurship and to, you know, enable companies to grow. The first place where it starts is with our business schools, our universities across Canada. We're seeing some change there, where more of the business schools have an entrepreneurship track. And 15 years ago, many business schools were training people to become consultant or middle, you know, managers at corporation, and that's changing. And it's just making sure CVCA, the organization that I lead, we do a Ask Me Anything series with universities across, where we put investors in front of students for them to think strategically and to know that the opportunities are there for them. There's a lot more incubator, accelerators. So making sure that it's ingrained in that everything that we do, that the ability to start and to grow a business. And then the rest is the ecosystem, like the red tape, the ability to nurture talent, to attract talent, to retain talent. Every city, every province, our country as a whole, we're grappling with an aging population, and we need people that have the wherewithal and the ambition to build our economy. And we have to be very welcoming. Immigration is a large part of that for Canada, and making sure that the conditions for those people when they arrive, Canada is a beautiful place to live, but we need to make sure that, you know, we're very mindful at a time where diversity and inclusion is at the tip of our tongues in every conversation, as we think about immigration and how we welcome these people to our country, that we are very thoughtful and inclusive in our approach to that. And the last one is what I do every day. I think that private equity and venture capital will be is essential to our economic growth. A lot of people think about venture capital and about Dragon's Den. That's where they kind of get a sense of like what it is, the type of companies, how people pitch. It's very important. It creates a lot more job than people think. This is not just a small startup economy on the side. I like to say to provincial governments, you may want to attract a multinational and create 200 jobs and think that that's a good accomplishment. You could do the same and even more benefits if you created 4 or 5 startups that all have between 50 and 100 jobs, because you're not only creating the jobs, you're creating an ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship and success and failures. And when people fail, they get back up again. When people succeed, they reinvest. So just this idea that private capital should be celebrated, we should understand it. And for private equity, which very few people understand, a lot of people have preconceived notion that it's just people buying out companies and hollowing them out. They're actually the engine of growth for a lot of Canada's SMEs. People that have built amazing companies that are on the verge of retiring, that are looking for a partner, and these funds come with a shared vision for growth, and that can only lead to more economic prosperity, and in the end, more jobs for Canadians. So those are the three things that I jogged down, Kat, and I'm happy, to just take any questions on those.
Those are brilliant. I love it. I love it. I do have one question. If there was one thing that you could change about the perception, I guess, that you just mentioned about private equity, how could you change it? How can we help change it, I guess? Is there a call to action that we can help with?
Well, it's part of my job description to dispel and to create a narrative and to make sure that people understand and to showcase the success stories. The one thing that I would say is when you think about private equity, and let's put things in perspective and take an example, because a lot of people will say, like, I'm still not sure what she's talking about. Let's take Mountain Equipment Co-op. Everyone followed the ebbs and flows of this company that we all love, that is part of the Canadian fabric, that we've kind of grown up with, and is a brand that is truly Canadian and cherished and has a very grassroots feel to it. A few months ago, they were in financial difficulty. Well, they've been in financial difficulty for some time, but a few months ago, in late 2020, it was announced that a private equity firm from the United States was going to buy it. And a lot of the members, because it's a co-op, said, well, wait a minute, you can't let this go to this PE firm. The first thing I would say is oftentimes, and we've seen examples, especially in retail, private equities usually use as a very, very last resort where things financially have been going wrong for some times. And it's really hard when you come knocking on a private equity's door to do a full turnaround. It's kind of your last Hail Mary. Now, I'm not sure what's going to happen with Mountain Equipment Co-op, but I will say that the word that I want people to think about is not hollowing or like pure buyout, it's partnership.
Yeah.
Private equity firms bid, like they approach these companies, they pitch their vision for change, they pitch their vision for growth, they set on a strategy. My members always say time and time again, if a CEO and a management team is looking to take the door, then we don't invest because there's something else going on with the company. We want these people to stay with us, to build, to have that vision. And to me, the word is partnership. When you think about private equity, think about a partner, strategic partner, and a partner that has the means financially to help you kind of take a different road in terms of your business development or just grow it by making the necessary investments in your infrastructure.
I love it. Great answer. Thank you so much. I love it. Partnership. Done.
Partnership, yeah.
New frontier, crystal ball. What do you see as a good news story in the new frontier for you, for your firm?
Well, this is a tricky question. And as I was thinking about it, COVID, from the moment it hit in March to us, being in disbelief and thinking it would be done in a few months, to sitting here thinking about vaccines and how we expected that this would happen quickly, and it's proving to be more challenging than we expected. Where we will be in 2022, I think is very hard to predict. But I'm an optimist at heart. I always see the glass half full. And if I took a prerogative and took a red pen to your question and added a 6 instead of a 2 at the end of the years and said 5 years from now, where will we be? I hope that through all of the disruption, through all of what we've seen through COVID, the adjustments in the way we have modified our behavior or consumption, the way we work, the way we interact, the way we network, that we will not waste that opportunity and take all of these change, which are very uncomfortable, and seize on the opportunity to reimagine our economy, reimagine our society, reimagine how we get, medical care. There's so many companies that are just on the cusp of being able to deliver different ways of doing things. And wouldn't it be a shame if we kind of dragged our feet and tried to hold on to the status quo or the past and did not embrace this period of change to just completely transform, and perhaps for the better, the way that we live, the way we interact, and the way that we do business.
Oh, I love it. What a great answer. I have one other question, if you don't mind.
Go ahead. This is fun.
I'd love your opinion on where Bitcoin or cryptocurrency falls into private equity in the future, or do you see it bolting on in the future in some way?
It's such a great question, Kath. And it's one where 2 years ago, when I took on my role, I felt like it was kind of a fringe issue. It was kind of like this noise in the background and a trend, something happening that was kind of fringe, like not mainstream. And I felt if you had asked me then, Kim, what do you think of Bitcoin? I would have been like, yeah, it's in the background. I'm sure there'll be a market for it. I'm sure it won't disappear, but it will never become mainstream, or it would take a very long time, or there would need to be an event or an element around currency that would trigger its adoption more heavily. And then elements, things, events, decisions, choices have taken place over the last year, from our central bank to large corporation, preparing themselves for the adoption of Bitcoin. And that tells me that I was wrong. And I'm always happy to say when I'm wrong or where my gut was misleading. I think it's here to stay. I think it's going to have a role to play. I think how it's going to be regulated, how it's going to be used. The markets today are a very interesting thing to follow. They don't really make sense. And I'll admit that crypto doesn't really make sense to me. It will have a role, especially in venture. And I assume private equity maybe a little bit less, but there will be some companies that will innovate around it. And those companies will likely be, in many parts, venture backed. But it's still a bit of an enigma to me, but it's clear that there's something substantive to it, and that we will have, my kids probably will think nothing of it.
Yeah.
And I'll reminisce on the old days when, we had paper money.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, the ancient days, back when the dinosaur, was living.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on all these important subjects. I really appreciate it, Kim. Thank you.
I'm really pleased that you asked me to join you. This was a treat. And anytime, Kat.
Thank you. It was my treat, and certainly our audiences. Thank you. Everyone, that was Kim Furlong. Check out the great work that she's doing, and certainly a visionary in private equity and all of the work that they're doing. So thank you for joining us on Cat's Track, and we'll see you next time.